serious concessions from the industry. We're joined now by Robert Kuttner, co-editor of The American Prospect and author of Obama's Challenge, America's Economic Crisis and the Power of a Transformative Presidency. Good evening, sir. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Let's start with obviously the most relevant questions. Was this necessary, and is it going to work?
Well, I think it's necessary to give the automakers some breathing room if they're going to restructure themselves. I mean, we've got a very serious recession. Auto sales are down 40%. And the question is, are you going to let these companies go bankrupt, or are you going to give them one last chance to try to produce cars that are fuel efficient, that Americans want to buy, that don't fall apart after a few years? But this is going to take a little bit of time. This is not going to be done in 3 or 4 months. What I find interesting is that senators like Graham and McCain are being very tough about what they expect from the automakers in the way of concessions, in the way of accountability. You don't hear any of this when it comes to the much, much larger sums that are going to the banks.
Well, certainly, and that's perhaps the most intriguing subplot to this. $17.4 billion for the auto industry, $250 now for billion for the banks, and I guess still another. In total, it'll work out to around 682 point something for the banks in billions. Again, I made the joke about save your receipts. It's as if the banks and the mortgage companies didn't even have to sign for the money. It was just take as much as you need. Where is that scream for any kind of clarity or accountability from those financial institutions?
Well, Wall Street obviously has more powerful friends in Washington than the automakers do, and when you think about it, it's easier to run a bank if you don't try and run it like a casino than it is to figure out how to make a car that people want to buy. And both sets of executives have not been doing stellar jobs, but you would think for the $700 billion that the taxpayers are giving to the banks, you would have even something approaching the kind of accountability that's being demanded of the automakers, and yet Paulson is just shoveling out the money. The Treasury is not demanding any kind of accounting about what the banks are doing with it. You just have to hope that when the Obama team comes on in a month from now, they'll do a better job both with the banks and with the automakers. This
loan, bailout, bridge loan, the various descriptions used today, part of this plan under the President Bush scheme called for the industry, the auto industry, to become viable by March 31st. Has anybody defined viable, and whatever it is it possible by March 31st?
No, totally impossible. I mean, you're talking about a radical restructuring of the industry, which could take a year, could take 2 years, and I think it's their last chance. Obama will probably give them more money, but he will have much more accountability. The government will probably be involved in the restructuring. You know, there's a historic parallel, Keith. In 1941, when we went to war, they shut down the assembly lines, and within 8 months, they retooled the auto assembly lines to make tanks and bombers and fighters. And this was the ingenuity of American industry, American workers on display. If we can do that to win a war, we ought to be able to do that to save this industry. But it's not going to be done by March 31st.
Obviously, everything gets done with somebody's palm being greased, and I don't mean that necessarily with money being handed, but their interests being solved. Hank Paulson now responds to this by saying, "Look, well, now the rest of the front half of the bailout for Wall Street is gone. Now you have to release the rest of the money to the financial institutions." Is it as straightforward a quid pro quo as that looks? Did this thing happen for Detroit because Paulson was somehow empowered to go and ask for the rest of the mortgage bailout?
No, I think the two things have nothing to do with each other. I mean, I think Bush did not want to see the auto industry fold as his final legacy in his last 30 days in office. And I think Paulson has such little credibility with Congress, given how he's run this bailout, that they're not going to give him the remaining $350 billion. They're going to wait for the Obama team to come in. They're going to put more conditions on it. And one hopes the Obama team will do a better job. I mean, don't forget, originally this was going to be money used to buy up toxic bonds, and then Paulson couldn't make that work, so he turns around and just gives the money to the banks.
Robert Kuttner, the co-editor of The American Prospect, author of Obama's Challenge. Great, thanks for your time tonight.